Hey guys, welcome back. It's Refining Your Rhetoric Lesson 5. This one's about direct, precise, and active verbs. So it's actually one of my favorite lessons. It's one of my favorite things to talk about and one of my favorite things to play with when I'm writing or the verbs that I'm using. Because verbs have a lot of impact on our writing and can make them can make our writing it's a quick, not easy, but quick way to substantially improve our writing and to evaluate the quality of other people's writing as well. Um, as always, this is a lesson that's built off of ideas within the book on pages 691 to 696. So if you want more information about this, you can always go to the book and check that out. We will be going through 3 steps that will help you make your verb usage more direct, more precise, and more active. So step 1 is to get straight to the action. A lot of times we delay the action in our writing by using verbs like to be. So what I've written here, forms of to be, those passive verbs a lot of the time are is, are, were, was, verbs in that ilk. They delay the action of a sentence. So when we look at this example here, in Gotham, the criminals always seem to be teetering on the precipice of control. That passive verb to be is just delaying the actual action of the teetering, and it's really unnecessary. If we can rewrite the sentence easily to just say, in Gotham, the criminals always seem to teeter on the precipice of control, and I was going to say just as good, but it's better, right? Like, why do we need the to be there in the first place? Teetering, using the verb teeter, is more exciting, and it's more exciting when it comes up faster. We can see the same in the second sentence. If you're Bruce Wayne and you want to be a philanderer, you get to be a philanderer. Well, he can be a philanderer or he can just philander. And so we can rewrite this sentence. If you're Bruce Wayne and you want to philander, you get to philander. The sentence loses nothing except those extra words there. We maintain the parallelism. The interesting nature of the word philandering is still there. And the sentence is much more interesting. So many times you may find in your writing that you're using these kind of filler verbs, and a lot of times it will be a to be verb, when really you just need to get to the point or get to the action a little bit faster. So my generic piece of advice is to cut most uses of any form of to be. You're not going to be able to 100% cut them out, but you should be able to cut a ton of them out. My second piece of advice is going to be to cut generic verbs. We often use verbs that are just good enough. We don't think about it. We just stick a verb in there, and it's just, we don't even consider the verb that we're putting in there. It doesn't even cross our mind. And what it comes down to is that verb is fine where it is. But if we were to think a little bit more about the verb that we were using, then we could actually increase the imagery of our writing and therefore get a lot more information across to the reader as we do that. So if we look at the example, Alfred walked into the darkened Batcave with a tray of tea and looked for a place to set it down. There's nothing really inherently wrong with this sentence. It's a fine sentence. It tells us what's going on. Maybe we have some familiarity with the characters and the setting already, but the reality is that the verb walked and looked are just, they're just, you can do those things in so many different ways that if we were to think for just a couple more seconds about the verbs that we could use in their place and replace them with something like this: Alfred shuffled into the darkened Batcave with a tray of tea and fumbled for a place to set it down, then all of a sudden we get so much more of an idea of who this person Alfred is. He's shuffling. Well, why is he shuffling? Is he shuffling because he's old, because he's decrepit, because he's injured? And if so, at the very least, we get this image of this guy who's not, he's not in his prime, and the way that he's walking is a, telltale sign of who it is that we're dealing with. And instead of looking, he's fumbling for a place to set it down. Is it because the Batcave is dark? Is it because he's shuffling? We have a much clearer picture. We could just have a generic butler come into a room and set a tea tray down. But here we've got somebody who is obviously having issues with, the setting, with his own body, and we have a nicer sense of what's going on in this sentence just by replacing two verbs. We can look again at a second sentence. After her loss during their last meeting, Catwoman did not look forward to running into Batman at her next jewel heist. First of all, we've got did not look forward to, that's probably a little wordier than it needs to be. And running into Batman, well, does that really encapsulate the nature of her encounter? Like she's just going to run into Batman? She's just kind of blah about, oh, I'm not looking forward to that. I mean, it's fine. Like we get it. She has negative sentiments about, what could happen next time they meet. But if we were to replace the verbs with something like this, after her loss during their last meeting, Catwoman bristled at the possibility of encountering Batman at her next jewel heist. Then all of a sudden, first of all, the verb bristled is a fun play on the sense that she's a Catwoman, right? The way that cat's hair rises up. It gives us this kind of almost symbolic sense of who she is. Bristling is the sense that somebody is feeling negatively toward whatever they're dealing with at that moment. It's stronger than not looking forward to something. And then encountering, an encounter implies some kind of conflict. So not only have we cut the number of verbs down, or I guess not the number of verbs, but the number of words down, but we've used these more descriptive verbs to again portray something about the character in this case. So my generic piece of advice here is to replace any verb that's good enough. Just one that just rolls off the tip of your tongue without even thinking about it. Or any boring verb or any generic verb, replace it. What can you do? What can you say? What verb can you use that's going to tell us a little bit more, put a clearer picture in our minds about what's really at the heart of your sentence here. My last piece of advice is to use fewer words for greater imagery. And using fewer words often means thinking about the verbs that you're using, because so many times the verbs that you're using can get across information that otherwise you would have to put in words. So if we're using active verbs, we can easily picture the subject and the action, like I was implying in the previous slide. So if we look at the difference here, they were fighting for an hour before the Joker and Batman noticed that their physical strength was tied. We get it. They've been fighting. They're noticing that neither one can beat the other one because they're an equal match. But if we look at this rewrite of the sentence, the shorter version of the sentence, fighting for an hour proved that the Joker and Batman matched each other physically. Like that sentence just gets so much more information across. We take the verb were fighting and we turn it more active. Fighting, in that case it becomes what's known as a gerund. It becomes a noun. So fighting is the thing that they're doing for an hour. Proved, they're not just noticing, it's proving something, a stronger version of the word, that the Joker and Batman matched each other physically, and instead of just saying that their physical strength was tied. It requires a slight rewrite of the sentence, but the replacement of those verbs to be more active and to be more imagistic really helps the sentence just kind of pop off the page. Whereas with the other version of the sentence, it's fine, it gets the point across, but the point is made in a more wordy way. So generically, you want to make sure that your verbs add to the images in your sentences. If the images in your sentence are of the Joker and Batman fighting, pick verbs that really kind of bring the fighting and the point of the sentence out. So now that we've gone over those 3 pieces of advice, let's see how you do with the practice.